Welcome back to the Mike Bates Show. This is Mike Bates. Do you remember when the fake news media reported that Donald Trump signed a law passed by Congress that allowed mentally ill people to buy guns? But what was the truth? The truth was that neither Congress nor the president did anything to allow the mentally ill to buy a firearm. The genesis of that fake news was that Congress, through the proper legislative process, voted to repeal an Obama administration rule which took effect on January 18th, 2017, just 2 days before Trump's inauguration, that prohibited gun sales to people who had designated a surrogate to handle their Social Security, VA, and some other government benefit payments. No doctors ever said those people were mentally ill. No court ever adjudicated them mentally ill. The Obama administration simply imposed a regulation that put those people on the government's list of prohibited persons, that said they couldn't buy a firearm. Those people didn't have to actually have any mental problems at all. Simply by designating someone else to manage their finances, they lost their Second Amendment rights. Even people with eating disorders, if that qualified them for a government disability check, which in many cases it does, they lost their Second Amendment rights also. So you see, despite what the lying press told you, President Trump did not allow mentally ill people to buy guns. The bill Trump signed simply reversed an Obama action whereby people had their fundamental constitutional rights denied without due process of law. They were never adjudicated mentally ill. Ever. If the media had any decency, they would have reported that President Trump and the Republican Congress restored constitutional rights to people who were inappropriately denied them by President Obama. Nothing in that law changed anything that prohibited people who have been adjudicated as mentally defective or who have been committed to a mental institution from owning a firearm. That remained, and still does remain, the law of the land. But the fake news said Donald Trump changed the law to allow mentally ill people to buy firearms. And then they blamed every mass shooting on Donald Trump, even though not a single mass shooter would have been covered by Obama's rule anyway. But again, fake news isn't going to allow the truth to get in the way of their political attacks against the president. For months, maybe even more than a year, the fake news reported that Trump obstructed justice as if it was a proven fact. Yet the Mueller report concluded it didn't happen. And besides, the allegation was based on Trump firing FBI Director James Comey for being corrupt, which he was corrupt. But firing the FBI director is completely within the lawful authority of the President of the United States. Yeah, FBI directors are appointed to 10-year terms, meaning they span more than just one president's term. But any president can fire the FBI director anytime he wants, and for pretty much any reason short of being bribed into doing it. Yet the fake news reported it as if it was a crime, which of course it wasn't. MSNBC falsely claimed that Fox News had their Christmas party at Trump's hotel in Washington, D.C. Fox News absolutely did not have their Christmas party at Trump's hotel in Washington, D.C. But was it really a lie about Trump? Yeah, I think it qualifies. Because just like the fake news media has tried to portray every dollar spent at Trump's hotel by a foreign government or a foreign corporation as an unconstitutional violation of the Emoluments Clause, which it 100% absolutely isn't, the propaganda press has tried to delegitimize Fox News and tie Trump to the network in some disparaging manner. So yeah, this was fake news about Fox News, but I think it qualifies as fake news about Trump also. Shortly after the inauguration, the fake news reported, you know what, this one is actually kind of involved. Let's take our break now, a little earlier than planned. When we get back, I'll give you another egregious example of the fake news media lying about Donald Trump, and I'll explain how this is a common technique they use against all Republican presidents. When the Mike Bates Show continues. Welcome back to the Mike Bates Show. This is Mike Bates. So another example of fake news against President Trump, and this is a common technique used against all Republican presidents. Shortly after Donald Trump was inaugurated, the fake news reported that Donald Trump raised FHA mortgage costs by $500 a year. He did not. Donald Trump simply suspended a planned reduction in FHA mortgage costs that was announced by the Obama administration on January 9th, 2017, and was scheduled to go into effect on January 27th. In other words, the costs were exactly the same as they were under President Obama. So why did Obama wait until there were less than a dozen days left in his presidency to announce the fee cut? It's because he didn't really want the cut. He wanted Trump to suspend the cut so the liars of the Democratic Party's propaganda press could denounce Trump as a cruel billionaire who doesn't care about average Americans. And that's exactly what they did. It's the same technique the dishonest Democrats employed at the transition from the Clinton administration to the Bush administration. That would be the George W. Bush administration. Hey, we had two President Bushes. I'm just making sure you know which one I'm referring to. But isn't it nice that I don't have to say which Clinton administration I'm talking about? If Donald Trump accomplishes nothing else, Americans should thank God every day that he kept that hideous beast Hillary out of the White House. Anyway, I digress. Getting back to that propaganda technique, it was the same motivation behind Bill Clinton's announced reduction of EPA standards for arsenic in drinking water. Do you remember that? In 2001, 3 days before Clinton's presidency ended, his EPA announced new federally mandated standards for drinking water. The new regulation mandated an 80% reduction in the level of naturally occurring arsenic allowed in drinking water from 50 parts per billion to 10 parts per billion. It replaced a regulation that was 60 years old. So why did Clinton do it? If it was such an important public health concern, why didn't Clinton impose it during the preceding 8 years? It was so that when George W. Bush suspended the new regulation, which had not yet taken effect, the news media would report that Bush changes EPA rules to allow 400% increase in arsenic levels in drinking water. He's poisoning our children. Which they dutifully did. That's exactly how they reported it. It was a disgraceful act by the politicians and the press. And it's also disgraceful that the average American is too ignorant or apathetic to know or care about the truth. Similarly, in October 2017, the fake news media lied about Trump's so-called cuts to Obamacare. He did not cut Obamacare payments. The payments that were the subject of those news stories were never appropriated to begin with. They were cost-sharing reduction payments that Barack Obama had been making that were ruled unconstitutional by the court. If you don't believe me, go read House v. Price. That's the lawsuit that was filed by House Republicans in 2014 against the Department of Health and Human Services over those cost-sharing reduction payments. And Rosemary Collyer, a federal judge in the D.C. Circuit, ruled that those payments were unconstitutional because the Obama administration was illegally spending money that had not been appropriated by Congress. All Donald Trump did was faithfully execute the laws of the United States as required by our Constitution. It was Barack Obama who illegally paid the insurance companies with money never appropriated by Congress. Says me? Says the court. But that wasn't part of the so-called news story. Take this example from NBC News. NBC News reported that the Trump administration cut Obamacare subsidies